What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Tablesetters covering all things Major League Baseball. As always, I'm Steve, joined by tag partner Devin. What's going on, man?
What's going on? What's up? What's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in as always here. Just right off the bat. If you hear Steve and I suddenly scream in this episode, and it doesn't really fit in, we do have some Knicks basketball here. Steve and I are not aligned when it comes to baseball teams. Steve, a Yankee fan. I'm a Mets fan, obviously, here. But we do both root for the Knicks big time. And we are in the middle, or not the middle, towards the end of a very heated close, entertaining game between the New York Knicks and the Philadelphia 76ers in game 2. So we might blurt some stuff out in the middle of baseball talk.
Of course, man. And MSG is bumping right now. We got some meaningful basketball over there. And what started as a news day with Joel Embiid being out of the game and sitting out of game 2 turned into everyone's like the Knicks are going to go away and win this series in a sweep. But the 76ers, as I was saying to you off air, they're just gritty. And whether it's Tyrese Maxey or that rookie Edgecombe, like these guys are going out there and scoring. And if you were out there, dude, and I know the spread at one point today was 10.5, I was telling you, I mean, you had to know the 76ers are going to cover. And right now we have a tight game, 96-96 in the fourth quarter. Who knows what's going to happen? So you never count out a team when their star player goes out. They have something to prove, especially on the biggest stage of the Mecca MSG.
Exactly. It just opens up shots for other guys. And if those guys take advantage, it's not exactly what you thought it might be. Just reading the Embiid headline and that he's out dealing with multiple injuries. And who knows, he might be out for more than one game here if that's the case. I know that last game of the series before this one, towards the end, he's just hobbling all over the place, just trying to grit it out. But we'll see. Before we go too far here, you know what? I got this swag on. If you're watching on YouTube here, shout out to my sister for getting this. This is not available to the public as of now, but if we get some good feedback, the Tablesetters hat here, get a better angle. Let's see, closer up. It is the kind of trucker style there. You know what? I used to see people wear these kind of things on their own podcast, and I'd watch it and be like, "Oh, those what marks? What marks for themselves these people are?" But I gotta wear it at least one time here to show it off on this episode. But yeah, I mean, I think it looks pretty swaggy there.
Yeah, it looks clean, man. Shout out to Shannon, your sister, and happy belated birthday to you out there. As you said in our last episode, this will be the last episode you're doing in your 30s. So you've crossed the threshold of being the big 4-0. Feel any different? I know you tore your Achilles about a year ago at this point, but feeling any different now that you're actually 40?
We'll see. Let's get through the episode and then listen back and listen to how grumpy I was. Maybe I'll be even grumpier. I'm every once in a while I'm already a little grumpy on here, but and I'm a Mets fan. That doesn't help. So we'll see. Nothing different yet.
Yeah, the hat is awesome. And again, maybe we'll have them for sale. The logo looks super clean on there. If you guys aren't listening, or I should say watching on YouTube, it is a gray background hat on a trucker hat and just a matte finish with the gold logo. It looks fantastic. So shout out to Shannon for doing that. It was a great birthday gift. And who knows, maybe we'll release some merch. I know we've had some people ask us, are we ever going to release t-shirts or whatever? Listen, man, if there's a market out there for doing it, we'll certainly explore it. It looks super clean on the hat. So you got me thinking maybe we'll put them on the market.
We got this one. This one's going to come your way next time I see you in person. But same idea, just alternate color scheme. So you got the black font.
That looks awesome too.
Gold background instead of the vice versa. But yeah, nice either way.
So if you guys are out there and are listening and you want Tablesetters merch, just let us know. If there's a market out there, even if there's like 4 or 5 people justifying us making them and spending the money to do it, hell yeah, we'll do it. But we're here to talk baseball. We're here once a week with all the great stuff. There's a lot of great news happening around baseball. As Devin said, there's a lot of focus, whether it be on the NFL draft that happened, that's gone by the wayside at this point, the NBA playoffs, NHL playoffs. But we fell into a rhythm at this point, Devin, where baseball has had this nice rhythm. We're already approaching 6-7 weeks into the year, which is unbelievable to think about. We said goodbye to April. It's no longer early. Now the next checkpoint is probably Memorial Day of who's real and who's not. But yeah, here we are, Devin. The baseball has this rhythm about it that lulls you into this false sense of security. And if your team is bad, it becomes this negativity thing. But for a team like me with the Yankees, and we'll certainly talk about them tonight, there's something about wanting to play every single day and keeping the momentum going. Of course, Yankees down big tonight against Texas at home. But every time you take the field, it's like, I feel like my team's going to win. And that's, it happens good and bad as far as momentum goes.
Yeah, I've had the opposite feeling at least all of April. It's been a little better for the Mets in May, and obviously they got snowed out last night, so they had they had a little momentum going, and now they had a couple days off. So we'll see what happens tonight in Colorado, where it's about 30 degrees. That can kill anyone's momentum, to be honest. But yeah, it's been a little bit of a wacky season so far. You look at both Central divisions, super close. The NL Central, like basically everyone's staying over 500. The AL Central, it's like, who wants it? Does anybody actually want it? Everyone's good enough to be in the mix, but it doesn't seem like anyone wants to break out. The Tigers, the heavy favorites. There was that picture they took when they made the Verlander signing after the Fromber signing of the five of them. Like, look at this like superstar rotation, and now four of them are gone if you count Fromber's suspension, which we'll talk about tonight. But that's why you just never know. You don't know how health is going to play into all this. And speaking of a rhythm, we've gotten to a little bit of a rhythm here with table setters since the season started, where we are recording on Wednesday nights, sometimes live. This one is not a live one, and then releasing, sometimes right away. But I think most people will listen the day after, Thursday morning, Thursday afternoon. And we kind of like it because a lot of Thursdays are a little lighter on the MLB schedule, with some teams getting off days, travel days. So fills a little bit of a baseball void, hopefully, to some of you guys that are listening. And I think as the season goes, we will definitely probably be mixing in, 2-episode weeks. We haven't had any guests in a while now. To be honest, we haven't really been reaching out to get guests yet. I think Steve and I like opening the season for the first few weeks or couple of months of like you and I getting this going and really reflecting on what's going on in the season. And then at that point, you kind of feel it out. Well, you know what? Now I'd like to talk to this person because this or that is happening with this team. Let's try to get this person on. So I'm sure that will be down the road. We do enjoy having guests on here, and that'll come soon.
Absolutely. We definitely want to have some guests on. I'm thinking of Ryan Bass for the Tampa Bay Rays. Definitely want to talk to him about what's happening over there in St. Petersburg. But also, before we move on, at Tablesetters Pod on IG and also on X, a little bit of check-in here, Devin, continuing to post some notables. And I saw some of the comments, man. You're getting some credit for making some people money. I know we don't want to officially tie ourselves with betting advice, but you're making this dude. I think there was a guy in the comments that he made $875 based on your notables that were posted on X.
Yeah, and again, like I'm the one who puts it together, but these can be found by anyone depending on the source you use. I just kind of do the work for you and weed out the ones that I think are most important. And like Steve and I have said before, like we are not recommending all of those things we put on there as notables as things you should bet on. Like take from it what you will. And if you are using it as a betting resource, I would advise you to not only go by that, but also take a look at how some of those hitters have been doing recently, right? Take a look at some splits, some home away stuff, check the weather. Like if you're a serious bettor, I'd suggest that. That is not necessarily betting advice. If you want to use it as a tool, be my guest. But I do like hearing the positive comments of it helping some people. And, we're over the 5,000 mark on X now, which is pretty cool to see. And hopefully that keeps on rolling. Before I forget, you just mentioned Ryan Bass. I want to give two shout outs, and they're both from Tampa. Ryan Bass is one. Just a few weeks ago, there was this clip, and it was the Rays. I can't remember now who they were playing, but a little girl got her hands on a home run ball, I believe, and a grown man like ripped it out of her hands. He has since apologized, so I'm not going to spend time ripping on him. But Ryan Bass, our friend, former guest, as the Rays kind of in the fields reporter, made it right and went up to her, the girl, and gave her some stuff, even though she was a fan of the opposing team. So that I thought was really cool to see him do. And I'm not surprised. He's a super nice dude. And then another thing coming out of Tampa, former guest and friend of the pod, still talk to him every once in a while, Chase Zaleski, who we interviewed last year on here when he was a member of the Nationals minor league system at the time, is now a member of the Rays minor league system. And now, as of yesterday, on the major league club. First time he's gotten the call to the majors. And I couldn't have been more excited when I opened up Instagram. It was the first thing I saw of like Zaleski gets the call. And I actually talked to him maybe a week or two before that, just as a quick little thing. And he said, he's like, we got to get another show together. Like he wants to come back on. And we said, absolutely. And now he's in the majors. Might be a little harder to get a hold of him. But we'll have to try to make that happen at some point this season.
Yeah, a lot of good people over there in Tampa. We're certainly, Yankee fan in my division, but a lot of rooting interest over there for Ryan Bass, as you said, our friend over there. And Chase Selesky forever will be a fan of what he's doing, and all the best of luck to him. Well deserved, absolutely. But
Yeah.
we're going to get into our opening say here with some sobering news that happened earlier in the week. And I'm sure at this point, most of you guys have heard this. Maybe it is a Northeast bias, but I don't think it is. The baseball world lost one of its more recognizable and distinctive voices on Monday. We lost John Sterling at the age of 87. And where do you even start with him? There was a lot of great tributes. I was listening to WFAN pretty much all day, which is the home of Yankees baseball. And John Sterling, for all the things that we've said about him, and if you listen to Yankees baseball, you know that in his later years, he wasn't the most accurate broadcaster, and that became sort of charming. And I liked how when there was a conversation about him, that there was an acceptance of who he was. And of course, you know, you think of the Yankees win, you think of his home run calls, all the unique ones that they were playing that on WFAN all day. They're finding clips of just the most obscure players about what his home run call was. And he honestly, if you think about it, just when he took on lead play-by-play broadcaster in 1989, he held that role until pretty much early 2024. And one of the things I didn't realize, Devin, was one of the more impressive streaks in broadcasting history. He called 5,060 consecutive Yankee games before finally missing some time in 2019, which is absolutely unreal. And I know we're romantic about baseball, even more so about baseball on the radio. It is the soundtrack of your summer. He was larger than life, especially in my life, because of all the great moments he called, and he's going to be missed. And, you know, he retired and he kind of, you know, we saw the replacement, Dave Sims, Susan Waldman's still out there. Michael Kay, still the voice of Yankees baseball on TV. But you have to kind of, what I'm taking away from this is really just appreciating the broadcasters as they're here. And I think John Sterling heard all the good things prior to him passing away. But you heard all these amazing stories that had me thinking about all the great broadcasters just around the New York area. And then if you guys are baseball fans everywhere, these guys should hear these stories about how much they're appreciated by the layman fan, about how they accompany us on the beach, outside in our backyard, in the pool, barbecuing, and they're part of your family. And I know it sounds cheesy, but John Sterling, it was one of those weird moments of like his voice, it's going to live forever, that booming voice, but it's gone. And it's kind of, you put that in a box, and he made such an impact. But it was a weird moment for me as a diehard baseball fan, a diehard Yankee fan, to say goodbye to John Sterling on Monday.
Yeah, and the soundtrack of the summer, as you said, and I've heard others say as well, is really the right way to put it. Baseball is special in a way of like this long season, 162 games, and if you're a hardcore fan, year after year after year, you don't realize how much time you effectively spend with those people that are announcing the ball games you're watching. As a Met fan, like I know how strongly I feel about Gary, Keith, and Ron, right? And also Howie Rose, who's retiring after the year. And you know, we're lucky to have Keith Rad as a friend now, a friend of the show, who it will be in that radio booth, hopefully for, you know, decades to come. You spend a lot of time with these people and they're kind of in the background, but someone put it as, and I wish I remembered who was saying, someone had tweeted out that they had this memory of coming home, driving home from a really, really rough day, and he turned on the Yankee game on the radio, and John Sterling's voice comes on. He doesn't remember the result of the game, but he remembers just feeling like it was like Sterling's voice, and just listening to the game felt like a warm blanket being put on you and just like comforting. No matter what was happening in the game, there was this lightness. Like Sterling, over the last, like you said, over the last several years of his career, some people kind of a little cruel and dunked on him for some bad calls. As a Met fan, I'm sure I poked fun here and there as well. There was even clips of like Mike Francesa, who was supposed to be a friend of his and worked with him at times, that, you know, said some negative thing, like threw him under the bus a little bit. But it's weird when everything's wrapped up, you see the whole career and you hear some of the calls for the iconic moments over the years with different people at his side. And he'll be remembered fondly. And you say he's gone, but like, yes, he is physically gone, but as a person in that position, you are not as gone as many other people that pass away, because you will hear those calls over and over and over, similar to Vin Scully, who, you know, we have here in our opening, right? Our opening song, his voice is in there as well as some other guys. So it is a unique position where you're gone, but in a lot of ways it feels like you're still here. And apparently the Yankees may use the Yankees win at the end of wins at home going forward. I think they did it that night. And Aaron Boone came out and said he hopes that's something that goes on to continue and is kind of a staple there. I don't know if they've confirmed that or not. You may know, but yeah, soundtrack of the summer. Definitely emotional. I felt more emotional about it than I thought. It caught me off guard because he's only been retired for what, a year and a half or something along those lines.
Yeah, he
And
came back postseason 2 years ago after retiring, but
right.
it's just, yeah, as far as the Yankees tribute, you mentioned on the S Network, they did such a fantastic job. And the Yankees do a
They
lot
did.
of things right, but honoring their past and their history is something that they get A plus plus. If I'm like the guy from the teacher from Christmas Story, I want to keep writing pluses. They did such an awesome job sprinkling in memories and having conversations and just a genuine appreciation for the people that have come before us. And that's really the camaraderie that's baseball. And that's something that you feel when you hear guys talk about it, whether it's you're on the same team or not. You know, Howie Rose came out and was talking about John Sterling being truly one of a kind. And part of my thought was, might sound morbid, but it's like, I want to appreciate Howie Rose and I want him to know how appreciated he is now while he's here to hear it. Like in his retirement tour, people should be telling Howie Rose how influential they are for their fandom. And Howie Rose was the announcer for the Islanders. And, you know, even though I'm not a Met fan, there's a lot of certainly Met games I hear it, Howie Rose's voice to it, tied with it. So he should hear those things. The same thing, like you don't want to wait till these guys are gone to throw flowers at their feet. They should get them, receive them, signed, sealed, and delivered.
Yeah, and the other thing I want to say just before, wrap up the stuff about Sterling is like from everything I listened to, and I listened to a lot, that those 24 hours and even the next day of tributes and people talking about him, to a man, like everyone made a point to point out that like John Sterling was also one of the nicest people like you'll ever meet. And I feel like that's an underrated part of someone like him because you know him for his calls and his booming voice and all that kind of stuff, but how you treat people is really how most people will remember you, especially people that have come across you in real life in person. And I think sitting in that chair of the Yankees radio voice, like such stature, I think it could be easy to go to someone's head and maybe not treat people completely well. I know there's some people like that out there where it's like never meet your heroes, and that's why. But I think Sterling, from everyone I've seen, whether it be a fellow broadcaster or someone that just met him once as a fan, everything I've seen is positive as far as how kind of a person he was. So I think that should be out there as well.
Oh, absolutely. And, all our best to John Sterling's family and everyone that's worked with him and everyone that's affected by it. Like you said, his voice will live forever. And, it's one of those things where, as far as you talked about the Yankees playing, they did that night. They didn't do it last night, but I know they'll wear the patch. I think they're starting on the 18th. I saw that they already released the patch they're going to be wearing, and rightfully so, on their jerseys coming up this year, paying tribute to the great John Sterling. But we're going to move on here to our meat of the order and talk about the rest of the news around baseball. So here we are with the meat of the order. I have the drop here, Devin. Let me play it because we got the video for the first time in a while. I'm going to play it up.
We have the meat.
All right, we're on our YouTube page over here with the nice Arby's thing. We do have the meats and some unfortunate news as far as the injuries go. You alluded to it in the opening. The Detroit Tigers and the rest of Major League Baseball were hit with some stunning news on Monday. Tarik Skubal is undergoing surgery to remove a loose body, or loose bodies, I should say, multiple, from his left elbow. He's going to be sidelining for an estimated 2 to 3 months at this point. And there's a lot of different directions we can go with this conversation. And I think the immediate is talking about the trajectory of the Detroit Tigers season. And it does raise some major questions about what was expected to be one of the more lucrative pitching free agent contracts in history that was awaiting for him after this season. But starting with the Tigers first, they have to replace arguably the best pitcher in baseball over the course of, the last few years, nearly impossible under any circumstances. And losing him in early May makes that challenge even steeper. And looking at 2026, you mentioned in the beginning the picture of this rotation they put in place, adding Fromber and looking to kind of build on what has been momentum. This is a team that's been making the playoffs. They've sitting there as a team that the expectation to win has been there, especially the urgency, as we mentioned, with the looming free agency, going all in of not trading Skubal in the offseason. As far as reinforcements on the horizon, no one's going to be Tarik Skubal. Troy Melton recently began a rehab assignment. You're looking at him. He's coming back from right elbow inflammation himself. Drew Anderson could also become an option. Detroit has been saying they need him in the bullpen because of Will Vest's right lateral form inflammation. I don't know. His production feels like it can't be replaced. So he was the centerpiece of their postseason hopes. Do you believe Scott Harris is going to aggressively explore the trade market in the coming weeks? Or are they going to bow out and say it's not possible? Because there's two different directions you can go with this team when Skubal's on the shelf.
I do not see them going out right now and being aggressive on the trade market. Like you said, he can't be replaced. This is a 2-time Cy Young winner back to back. And this also means we're going to get a new AL Cy Young winner this year. That's another story, I guess. But Yeah, no, I don't think their front office is going to do that. I mean, they already brought in Fromber to kind of almost effectively replace Skubal maybe after this year. At least that's what some people think. Have another ace in waiting, even if it's not the same guy as Skubal. You got to remember, this is the same franchise who is kind of known now for the last couple years, especially back in 2024, for their pitching chaos, right? Pitching chaos is something they've kind of mastered here. So my guess is that you're going to see more of that going forward with them. And also, like you named Troy Melton, if he can get back here, man, Troy Melton is a guy and I know a lot of other people were very, very high on. And then when I actually didn't love the Verlander signing, even though it was a feel-good story to kind of get him back in Detroit for the end of his career, I didn't love the Verlander signing because I wanted it pushed Melton further down. I think Melton could be a really, really good piece for them if he's healthy. So he's got to get healthy himself. Drew Anderson, you mentioned too. That's a good name to mention. He was one of the stars in spring training. Like he was fantastic, but hasn't gotten that opportunity. And let's be honest, there were other guys that were spring training stars in the league this year too that have not done much at all. So we can't put too much stock in that. But yeah, I think they kind of go not as like who replaces Skubal, but like how can we as a group kind of make up for this loss? And I don't know. I think the Tigers are still okay here. I don't think they're absolutely screwed. I don't think they have no shot at the playoffs now. I think they are in the correct division. Okay, and I mentioned this before too, pointing out some of the wacky stuff in the bigs this year so far. Listen, I think every team is within a game and a half of first place in that division. So no one's running away with it. I think that's the right division for them to be in when you're going to lose a Tarik Skubal. But everyone's going to have to play better in his absence. A few players are going to have to play over their heads, like over the back of their baseball cards to kind of make up for this. But yeah, Melton is the guy I'm watching, man. I want to see him be healthy and be up here and show what he's got because I think he's got a lot. I think he could be a future star for Detroit and big shoes for anyone to fill. And like I said, I don't think any one person is individually filling those shoes.
Yeah, and I think as far as looking at through the lens of how this affects not only the free agent market in the offseason this coming year and also the trade market coming in just 2 months, unbelievable to say. You have some executives of the American League talking about this, and everyone to a man was saying that they're going to wait for a few weeks, both buyers and sellers, maybe give it till June 1st to really assess how the market develops. And if you look at some of the names on this market, whether it's going to be Tarik Skubal or not, if you're a belief that maybe they would have traded him at the deadline, that's a different story. But if Detroit wants to look externally, if we want to believe that they're going all in, they believe that Tarik Skubal will come back full force. As you mentioned, the AL Central is still winnable. If they want to reinforce the pitching staff, Freddie Peralta is a guy that we're looking at could emerge as a trade target if the Mets continue to underperform, especially with him approaching free agency. They haven't locked him up. Clay Holmes is another guy that could draw some interest given the expectation he's going to decline that $12 million player option for 2027 if his trajectory continues, and he's been pretty damn good to start the year.
Fantastic, yeah.
Boston's start could eventually make Sonny Gray available, and I think the Red Sox we'll see them playing a little bit better. They're in striking distance of a wild card spot with Garrett Crochet being hurt. Their situation's kind of quite similar to the Tigers as well. Sandy Alcantara is another name expected to be in trade discussions, and stop me if you heard this one before. I think a lot of executives, similar to last offseason, have identified him as the likeliest player to be traded before the deadline. But his contract situation and Miami's timeline makes this trade far from certain. As we saw play out last year, they want a package that makes it worth it. And one other name, it's Joe Ryan. Same division. The elbow soreness thing plays a part. And Robbie Ray, he's going to be a free agent. So some of these names on there, whether they're going to go to Detroit or not, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. And without Skubal as this big free agent, big fish in the free agency, it kind of makes the offseason. I understand the lockout is looming and all that. He was the big fish. And I think if we're looking at him potentially getting that $300 million deal, trying to break Yamamoto's record of 12 years, 325, that's certainly the mark that Boris and the gang want to get for him. I'm not sure because that's really the final piece in conversation here, Devin. It's like, for Skubal, it's more about next year. And I know he doesn't want to say that, but it's about the big payday that we've all been waiting for. Do you believe that people are going to look past this injury and say, we know his talent, we know his track record, we know his age, He's going to be a premier pitcher in baseball. He could return strong in the second half. Does he still get that contract that everyone was expecting? Or is this his roadblock of saying maybe teams are a little bit more hesitant to give him, let's just say 335, 350?
So I think this is an easy answer. I think it depends on what he comes back as. He's got to come back before the year is over and show his stuff. And it's complicated because you say 2 or 3 months, like, oh, okay, he'll be back before the end of the season. But yeah, but like he's still got to then build up also. Like, so when he comes back, are we going to get like full Tarik Skubal for a couple months at the end of the year and maybe a playoff run? Or are we going to see him in little bits and pieces? I think if we see the full version of Skubal, even in a short sample size, say the last month and a half or something of the season, he'll get a big deal. 12 years for like Yamamoto? No, not even close. 10 years? No, I don't think so. I don't believe that at all. Could he get 8 like Max Fried? Yeah, I could see that. And obviously a super high AAV. But I think if anything, the years might come down because of this. But if he comes back and shows he's completely healthy, he's all good. This reminds me a little. I have felt since last season ended and the whole WBC thing where he kind of sort of was on the team, but not really. Let's be honest. I've kind of felt like he is like just trying his damnedest just to get to the free agency mark. Like you said, like that is no matter what he said. I know he did the whole like went to all the different Detroit team games, try to get some goodwill there, which still kind of, I don't know, seems a little strange of what exactly what he was trying to do there very publicly. Camera on him all the time. I think he has just been thinking about, or maybe Scott Boras has been in his ear, like do whatever you have to do to get to free agency, like unharmed here. And I also wonder this injury, like he wasn't pitching poorly. It wasn't like he was getting shelled, right? So I wonder if this is the kind of thing that usually he'd be pitching through. It reminds me a little bit of like Jacob deGrom's last year or so in New York and Queens, where like he started becoming like a little, this might not be fair to say, but to some fans, it started to feel like he was a little bit of a head case, like a little bit, any little thing that came up, he'd like be scratched or have come out early. And it's like, man, I feel like this guy used to like grit through everything to get through 6. And suddenly he's in and he's out. He's in and he's out. And I felt like he was just trying to get to that one last free agency turn that he was going to have for one last big payday. And to a degree, I can't even blame them. Like, think about how hard you have worked all these years you've put in to finally get, especially in Skubal's case, to finally get to free agency for the first time. Like, it's a big deal. And pitchers and arms, like, you just never know when they're going to go, especially guys that throw hard. So, yeah, those names you mentioned, by the way, are lots of good ones. Like, all those names you mentioned, it's a really good point that they should and very well could be out there. The Robbie Ray one, that for some reason, I just feel like that fits in Detroit. But the other part of that is, like, remember last trade deadline, how insanely expensive starting pitching was, which is why a lot of people went bullpen instead. The prices were insanely high. If that's the same market, it might be tough. Like, if you don't want to give up a Max Clark or some of the other guys right behind him, if you're Detroit, like, I don't know if you can land any of those dudes. So it might have to be someone else, like maybe like a Zach Gallen, who I believe is on a 1-year deal back in Arizona, not pitching like the old Zach Gallen. Are you okay with him? Like, I don't know if you're getting a number 1 or 2 guy like some of those guys you mentioned.
Yeah, and I think front offices are always cautious with elbow-related injuries. We know that, and they're especially, I mean, when you're discussing contracts that could exceed $300+ million, there is a risk profile inherently with a pitcher. But now you add in the fact that he has something like this, it's going to be interesting, more interesting than we thought, because we thought it was a certainty that he was going to get this historic payday, and he's going to get paid. There's no doubt about it. His kids, generations of Skubals are never going to want for money, that's for sure. But what we thought was going to be a guarantee of locking down the biggest payday in pitcher history, maybe it's not as guaranteed as we thought. Maybe we're going to look at some fragmented deal that we saw in the offseason of the Bichette type of deal, high AAV, short-term opt-out situation. And maybe that brings Detroit back into the conversation a little bit further. And it definitely muddies the water a little bit more for him. But we'll see how the Tigers can stay afloat, because like you said before, this is the right division for them if they want to survive a life without Skubal, because first place right now is below 500 and they're a half game out right now. So they're certainly able to survive. And if he comes back for October, they follow the Dodgers playbook of just have him healthy in October. Who knows what can happen?
Yeah, that's the thing. I think that maybe is the biggest part of the story, the division they play in. Nobody's out of it, and nor do I think anybody's going to be out of it anytime soon. So hold the fort, pitching chaos. I think AJ Hinch is the guy that can figure this out and keep them afloat while they wait for him to get back.
So what happens first? Does Skubal come back, or does Fernando Tatis Jr. have a home run?
Oh my God, he better have a home run. Holy shit. He better have a home run before Skubal comes back. That's
We're seeing the advanced metrics of Tatis.
What would you
I know the Rates and Barrels boys talked about Tatis today or yesterday. So it's coming. The power's coming, but dude, as a fantasy owner of Tatis, dude, it's rough.
Well, I was gonna say, man, what's the price tag for Tatis nowadays? He seems like a perfect buy low candidate right here. Are you willing to move him? What would you be looking for Fernando Tatis, who's probably frustrating the crap out of you right now?
He definitely could be had, but there's a lot of players out there that probably are buy low. Like we're going to talk about Nick Kurtz during this and some of the numbers on him. Some of the underlying, you open the hood of the car, take a look at it. It looks pretty damn good, but the results haven't been there. More so Kurtz than Tatis. But some of the advanced stuff on Tatis, I'm hopeful that the power is coming, but it's just been unbelievably frustrating to watch a player like him, especially with a lineup that's playing pretty well. And it's not like Tatis is not getting on base. He's just not hitting for power. It's a bizarre thing for a guy who is close to 50 home runs a year in his career. He just can't hit for power right now. It's unbelievable.
It's a strange one. It's even stranger that with that, San Diego's a half game behind the Dodgers and playing really, really well. Like no Nick Pivetta there. Like with all the things that have gone against them, the fact that they're finding ways to win games and are right there within striking distance when LA's playing well too. It's not like LA just has gotten out of the gate slow. Like they're staying right with them when the Dodgers are playing well for the most part. So shout out to San Diego. But you mentioned Kurtz in that same boat of different than the Tatis stuff, but some of the pop, we're surprised there hasn't been more. So he's next here on the list here. So you put this on the rundown here. What made you think this one was like a slow start? When you say slow start, how would you put that in your own words?
I mean, I think no matter what, and maybe it's not fair, it's a step back from what we saw last year. He was spectacular in his rookie year, and maybe that's not a fair metric to grade someone against, but looking at the slash line at 170 WRC plus last year, he launched a home run every 13 plate appearances last year, and he looked like one of the best hitters in the sport. So maybe that's not the bar that anyone can reach. This year, the production's cooled right now, 130 WRC plus thus far. His ISO, bigger concern, dropped from 329 to 168. The home run pace has slowed dramatically there, and I guess it would have to be there. The thing I do like, and part of this metric of putting this on here is yes, it's a slow start. The indicators underlying are telling two very different stories. The surface level numbers, if you're a common baseball fan, not looking under the hood, you're like, well, Nick Kurtz isn't the same player. But I think I like more of the player he's been thus far, even though the numbers aren't completely there, because he's walking more. As a young player, he's hitting the ball harder. His barrel rate is up. His hard hit rate is up. His swinging strike rate is actually down. His line drive rate is better. The expected WOBA is up from last season. He's averaging the 90th percentile exit velocity among the best in baseball. So it kind of makes, and I know people hate hearing this, that it sometimes is bad luck. You're hitting into bad luck here. The results have just not caught up with the underlying metrics. So I think really the biggest difference is where and how the damage is being done. Last season, the superpower of Nick Kurtz, as you followed very closely, was opposite field power. He wasn't just poking singles the other way. He was driving the ball to left field with the kind of authority that really most hitters only show when they're pulling the ball, and usually not seeing a young hitter doing that. He was doing that in such a big way. His opposite field production was absolutely absurd last year, and he was ahead of guys like James Wood and Aaron Judge, which is crazy to say in his rookie year, and most of that part of his game has disappeared thus far. He has not hit a single opposite field home run yet this year, and the reason appears to be the launch angle. And looking at, you want to look under the hood a little bit further. Last year, when he hit the ball to the opposite field, he kept it off the ground. His average launch angle was 34 degrees, which is close to, you look at the home run window, that's where you want to be for a hitter with his raw power. And then this year, that number has jumped to roughly 41 degrees, which would turn into fly balls. And that's what we're seeing from him. And I think balls hit between 33 and 35 degrees at 100 to 105 mile per hour turn into home runs nearly half the time than last year. And that's the difference. And I think eventually that will catch up. The results will catch up with the underlying metrics. He's still hitting the ball hard enough to go out. He's just getting under too many of them. And I think most of his contract has shifted towards center field instead of pulling the ball. So he's crushing balls back up the middle, and center field is the biggest part of the park. It's just simple math here. So that helps explain why the expected stats are going to remain strong, but the actual power production is just not there. And I also, the bigger thing, and I'll pass it to you because, again, you've been watching him very closely. The thing that does concern me is the fastball performance. In 2025, he was one of the best fastball hitters in baseball, especially against the four-seamers, sinkers, and the cutters. And then this season, we've seen a huge drop in that dramatically. Slugging against four-seamers is down from 776 to 618. His slugging against sinkers has fallen from 623 to 304. And he's gone from one of the more productive hitters against fastball to middle of the pack. And I do believe that is the more concerning things of long-term picture. But he's not striking out too much. And the fact that we're seeing that as a young hitter and walking more, that to me is an indicator he's going to get hot soon, especially playing in that ballpark.
Yeah, I mean, they're all good points. It's a complicated discussion, really. When you sent me over the ideas for what we should talk about tonight, and I saw the Kurtz slow start, I was almost like, is it really a slow start or is it just different? But then I was like, no, I want to talk about this because this is like a really fun conversation here. To go just what you just said, the fastball stuff is interesting because I'm looking at it now. I think part of this discussion is last year just set the expectations way too high. Like everything went right. He might have caught the league off guard a little bit. He is the kind of guy who hits home runs in bunches. Like even go back to his college performance in Wake Forest. Like he'll just go through streaks of days of being unconscious and like not being able to get the guy out and just hitting tons of home runs. So you're right. Against the fastball last year, he was unbelievable. He hit 333 against fastballs, only 277 this year. Not bad, but significantly less than last year. That's just fastballs in general without breaking them the types down. But 333 last year against the fastball, the expected batting average was only 271. The expected batting average this year is 272, basically the same. The slug last year, he slugged 703 against fastballs. The expected slug was 580. This year, the expected slug is 506. So when you look at it that way, it's not as different. With that being said, like I said, it's complicated. You mentioned the walks, which are tremendous. Only Mike Trout has walked more than Nick Kurtz coming into the night. Kurtz has 34 walks on the season. I believe Trout has 36. Kurtz's walk rate is 21.7%. He's batting 244, and that was coming into tonight. I know he has a couple hits tonight, so that's probably up a little bit. So it's not like he's batting 200 here. A 408 on base percentage is 10th best in the majors. So like he's getting on base, and that's important because the A's are doing one thing with him a lot that I don't like as a fantasy owner. He's leading off a lot, kind of like Kyle Schwarber did for a little bit with the Phillies for, 1 year in particular. I feel like he was leading off almost all year. Kurtz has also hit second and third in the lineup a little bit, but I feel like a lot of times when I check the fantasy lineup, that one is next to his name as a leadoff. So like he might be a little less aggressive and a little more patient when he's in that position, and just be swinging less. He's got a 128 WRC plus overall, so still significantly above league average. He's only slugging 407. I think that's where you're going here, which is only 86th in Major League Baseball. He's supposed to be a top 5 slugger, right? According to what we saw last year. The leadoff thing I think is important. The walk rate's almost up by 9 points from last year. He's seeing more pitches out of the zone too. So people are pitching him more carefully. They're not necessarily pitching him differently. If you look at the breakdown of what percentage of fastballs he's seeing, off speed and breaking balls, it's almost identical to the way he was pitched last year, but he's seeing less stuff in the zone. So 4.5% more pitches out of the zone. Not that he's swinging at, that he's just seeing in general. So people are being more careful with Kurtz. That's part of this too. The Savant page still shows bright red in a lot of spots other than like whiff and strikeout. Those are always going to be blue for him. But exit velocity, barrel, like you said, hard hit, bat speed, all above the 90th percentile. Some of them significantly above the 90th percentile. To go kind of, you talked about fastballs. The thing that jumped out to me was actually he's struggling against off-speed pitches pretty significantly, hitting just 0.53 against off-speed pitches with 0 home runs. Last year, he hit 269 against off-speed with 6 home runs. So like not a ton of power there, but like held his own. He had 269 against off speed, so he wasn't getting killed there. Also struggling against lefties, hitting just 191, no home runs, 21 strikeouts in 47 at bats. So not so great against lefties either. I think it's worth noting, like, people will claim he hits most of his home runs, or any A's hitter. They're going to say, oh, he probably just hits all his home runs, or 3/4 of them at home in that minor league ballpark. 4 of his 5 home runs have been on the road, so that's not the case for him yet. And once, I know we say the weather stuff all the time. We're probably sick of ourselves and other people saying it, but it's going to get hot. The air is going to get super, super thin there in Sacramento. So he's going to have all the opportunities in the world to pad that home run number pretty significantly. Like I said, known for hitting home runs in bunches. It would not be a shock to see, at least to me, to see him double his home run total in the matter of like a week's worth of games at some point, like in the near future. I'm not saying he's going to do that, but if he did, I wouldn't be like, oh my God. I'd be like, I'd be happy as a fantasy owner. I wouldn't be completely shocked. One thing I love about Fangraphs, one of their best tools, is that you can go to the on pace section and it'll show you exactly what everybody is on pace for as of now. He's on pace as of now for just 23 home runs. That would be a pretty big shock if that's what he finished with. I'd put very big money on him beating that number.
Yeah, and again, we're looking at a player that raised the bar so high. And there's a great article on Fangraphs that Ben Clemens wrote that's talking about, he calls it Nick Kurtz's strange encore, with some great stats similar to the ones I put in here that really jogged my conversation about what I wanted to discuss here on tonight's show. And some of it is just, it's fascinating to watch a player that raises the bar so high as a young player, that eventually we're going to see some of the process coming through. If you're a belief in the underlying stats, we're due for a hot streak, and the rest of the league should be very scared about playing Nick Kurtz in any capacity, because he's a guy that's going to get hot and hit those home runs in bunches, because it's coming. I do believe that as well.
And I will say, I do love that. Okay, pitchers are saying we're just not going to throw him as many strikes because, like, look at the whiff percentage and the K percentage. Like, we'll get him out that way. And, the K percentage is still high, but again, almost 5% more balls that he's seeing, like, out of the zone pitches. And he's taking his walks. Clearly, he's at the top of the league in walk percentage and walks total. So he's saying, all right, you're not going to throw me as many strikes. I'm going to be patient. I think eventually that's going to pay off for him. If these guys realize, like, we can't just get him out all the time out of the zone, like, they'll eventually come more in the strike zone. I think it'll go that way. So this approach he's taking right now may pay off in the future. And obviously, as a fantasy owner, trying to be optimistic here.
Yeah, I mean, he's years wise. Like, that's what it is. He's years ahead of being as wise as he is as a young player. That's the biggest thing we're watching through that lens. And those high fly balls are going to turn into power. We're confident. 6'5", this dude is just a monster. He's a slugger incarnate. Like, we know he's going to go out there and crush the ball. But let's talk about Matt Olson. And potentially on the rundown we put as either runaway favorite for the National League MVP. And let's talk about the Braves to start. They own the best record in baseball as of today. I mean, we have some games be played, but 26-11. Offense looks overwhelming. The entire roster carries the same energy that you look at the 2023 team where they won 104 games. And again, you look at some of the contributors. Bryce Elder suddenly looks like he's reborn. We'll talk about him a little bit when we talk about Red Hot Ice Cold if we get there. But this season is becoming about Matt Olson. And at this point, we can have the discussion, but if the season ended today, Matt Olson is the National League MVP going away. And the real question that you need to ask yourself is whether anyone has actually been better than him on either side of the aisle, AL or NL, in the first 6 weeks of the season. And he's been the engine behind this Atlanta Braves team. And they're the most dangerous offense in baseball thus far. Elite numbers across virtually every major category. And in entering this morning, he's hitting .301, 13 home runs, 33 RBIs. His OPS is 1,059. So his numbers are there. He's first in Major League Baseball in RBIs. He's tied for 20th in batting average. He sits third in both home runs and OPS. And the entire offensive profile of Matt Olson is just as dominant beneath the surface. We talk about underlying stats for Nick Kurtz. According to some of the StatCast metrics, Olson ranks in the 95th percentile or higher in expected weighted batting average, expected slugging percentage, average exit velocity. We're looking at a guy with barrel rate that's elite, hard hit percentage, and we can go on for days talking about Matt Olson. The defense himself has been quietly a major part of his value. He has +4 outs above average. It's a big part of his game, placing him in the 96th percentile defensively among first basemen. And you look at some of the historical comparisons a lot of people in Atlanta are making, even the baseball national media is making it. He recently became the first player since Ted Williams in 1949 to hold the outright MLB lead in doubles, RBIs, and runs scored at the end of any day in May or later. When you're making comparisons to Ted Williams at any point of the season, then you know you're doing something special. He's in rare territory right now. And this is not a hot streak. I mean, we love the player Matt Olson. We've seen this from him before. He can be a guy who carries the team. But I think one of the biggest reason, of course, he's controlling the inner half of the plate. If you watch Matt Olson play on any given night, pitchers are struggling to challenge him inside. And when they do, he's punishing them. So that's a big part. I mean, the adjustment, we look at the matchup, he was against Tarik Skubal and lay this out for the game. Tarik Skubal, of course, ace. It's a mind game playing against him. Lengthy first at bat ended in a hard hit, robbed by Colt Keith. Matt Olson comes up, adjusted later in the game, crowds the play. He forces Skubal to attack inside, and then Olson then turns into a 98-mile-per-hour sinker into a driving into right field. So this is a guy who's making adjustments on the fly. He feels comfortable. This whole Atlanta lineup feels comfortable. He is, even go back to 2023, maybe one of the understated players in baseball, one of the highest slugging percentages in all of baseball and inside pitches. You can't game plan against this guy right now. So I love everything Matt Olson's doing. Maybe you add in, sprinkle in the fact that we have some injuries around baseball. Shohei Ohtani's certainly not the player he has been offensively quite yet. Matt Olson right now going away. I don't think you can put it in an envelope and give it away and say that he's the MVP come end of the season. But man, he's a huge reason why we're seeing the Atlanta Braves resurgent and being really the best team in the National League as we sit here on May 6th.
Yeah, I hate it. As a Met fan here, he's such a stud, and he seems like such a good dude as well. Like again, like Braves go from Freddie Freeman to Matt Olson. Like, usually, like letting a guy like Freddie Freeman walk would be seen as like idiotic for years, and they just go from him to Matt Olson. It's like the Packers going from Favre to Rodgers to Jordan Love. Like, it's just unfair. Doesn't happen very often. But I talked about on pace before for Kurtz. Well, how about Olson? On pace currently to hit 308, 57 home runs, 144 RBIs, 153 runs scored, 1,077 OPS, 10.4 FWAR. Those are Aaron Judge type of numbers, like at his best. So that's we'll see if he can get there, but that's the on pace right now. You mentioned the current stats. 2.4 FWAR in the National League. The next closest to him is Bryce Terang and Ellie De La Cruz at 1.9. So like not particularly close in the world of FWAR. Now, if we're saying kind of like you just said, like you can't put it in an envelope right now, like, yes, if the season ended today, runaway MVP. But I do not think he's runaway like in the future here. Is he top of the field? Yes. I think in the end, guys like Ellie De La Cruz, Juan Soto, Corbin Carroll, and especially Shohei are going to have something to say about this, even though Shohei is currently in the midst of a down offensive year, hitting 240 with only 6 home runs, only 14 RBI. You do have to remember, and I know we've said this before, but on the mound, he has been absolutely elite. He has pitched to a 0.97 ERA with a 10.22 K per 9. None of these other guys, whether it be Matt Olson or Corbin Carroll or Juan Soto, are pitching on the mound to under a 1 ERA. So it's kind of not an unfair advantage, but it's certainly an advantage here. If the offense starts to improve for Ohtani, which more than likely it will at some point, he will once again, I think, be almost impossible to beat, even if Matt Olson meets those projected numbers I just talked about, the on-pace numbers. It almost feels to me, and this is not an Ohtani discussion, but you have to kind of put him in here. It almost feels to me, watching Ohtani this year, that he's more focused this year, in particular, at adding the Cy Young to his mantle. Like there was that 50-50 year where he was like really concentrated on the stolen base part of things. And then obviously the World Series runs and all that. And I feel like this year he came into the year like fully healthy as far as a pitcher finally. Like, I want to go out and win the Cy Young this time. And maybe the offense has suffered a little bit because of that. Maybe you can debate that. But you can't debate what he's done on the mound so far. Just a couple notes about some of the other guys I talked about. Corbin Carroll, he should not just be glossed over here. I think he's going to be in the mix all year as far as MVP conversations, especially if Arizona can kind of stay in the playoff mix. He leads all National League hitters in WRC plus when in high leverage situations, 378 in those situations. So there's the clutch factor. Matt Olson also has that factor for sure, especially recently. One of the better high leverage hitters as well, 254 WRC plus. in those situations. You talk about late or close situations. So Baseball Savant in the splits, you can find that specifically late and close situations. Olson has 11 at bats in those particular situations. He's 4 for 11 with 3 home runs. So hitting the ball out of the ballpark a few times in big moments. To me, the most impressive part of all of the Matt Olson stuff, he has started 820 consecutive games. That streak started back on May 2nd, 2021. He plays 162 every year. He's one of a few guys. It's like him, Pete Alonso. There's maybe 2 or 3 other guys in that mix that if they don't play 162, you're like, oh man, that's like a shocker. It's the 11th best streak of all time. Like he's almost in top 10 of consecutive games played. And I think that gets glossed over a little bit. That's an incredible number. And he does it playing elite, like defense, offense, teammate, like everything. It's incredible what he's doing.
For sure. And, not to make this conversation about just Matt Olson as far as his full career goes, just more context on what he's doing. 32 years old, hit his 300 home run recently in his career.
Yeah.
And if you look at just the list of guys who've done that, Mark McGwire, Harmon Killebrew, Albert Pujols, Ryan Howard, Jimmy Fox, and Hank Greenberg have reached 300 home runs faster among first basemen. Do you think he's a Hall of Famer as far as trajectory goes? Do you think that we're going to see him eventually in Cooperstown with what we're seeing right now? As far as looking at first baseman, he already has 300 home runs. I mean, he's 32 years old. He's still hypothetically could be playing another eight years, even more.
Yeah, I would put big money on yes if things keep on going the way they're going. I don't see how he doesn't end up being in the Hall of Famer, especially we talk about this all the time. Like guys are going to be, the Hall of Fame is going to be judged for this generation in a bit of a different lens than past decades as far as what numbers we're looking for. And I think Olson is going to pass those tests very easily.
So right now the Cubs are tied in the bottom of the ninth with the Reds 6-6 with Pete Armstrong with a tying home run to make it 6-6. But before that, we put the list together. And of course, recording on Wednesday night. The Cubs have won 13 straight at home, 7th overall. And I guess the conversation we want to have here is, are they special? And Michael Busch delivered a walk-off single in the 10th inning to beat the Reds last night 3-2. The winning streak, as I mentioned, got to 7 games overall at Wrigley Field, 13 straight. The second consecutive night the Cubs won in a walk-off fashion. And if they're going to win again tonight, it will be in walk-off fashion one more time. Again, it's kind of the way they're winning games. You're watching teams with vibes and how teams are building upon it. The really camaraderie that's being built of just a team that wants to overcome adversity. Busch tied the game with a solo home run in the 8th inning, finished it 2 innings later, single up the middle, scored Dansby Swanson. One night earlier, Michael Conforto won it with a pinch hit walk-off home run. And before that, the home streak had already included walk-offs from Carson Kelly, Nico Horner, and also Dansby Swanson. So 5 walk-offs, 5 different players.
Yeah.
I don't know, Devin. That feels like a sign of a team building something deeper than just this top-heavy production of the teams. Like, all right, we're going to get things from our stars. They're going to come out and deliver for us. The Cubs are getting contributions from the middle of the order, from the bottom of the lineup, the bench. They're getting guys in the bullpen. They're confident, and it's becoming kind of part of their identity to all hands on this rope. We're going to pull in one direction. Craig Counsell was talking about in the post game, what a great interview, and the team really rallies behind him. He's talking about this hard to beat mentality, and that really feels like a really appropriate way to frame what the Cubs are doing, because they're not just out there just beating teams and going to front run them from the beginning. They're just hanging around. They extend games when it matters. They're creating pressure. And some of the underlying stats of what we're seeing from them, there's a trust that anyone in this lineup 1 through 9 can deliver when it matters. And I think if you look at even Jameson Taillon, he was talking about this, even after leaving the Cubs trailing 2-0 after the 6th, he was talking to Matthew Boyd and Colin Ray in the dugouts. And apparently in the postgame, he's like, yeah, we felt like we were going to win the game. And that might sound cliche, but this is a team that's like fully confident. You look at some of the numbers behind that. You know, we mentioned the home streak and the winning streak. They've won 17 of its last 20 games. They're 16-5 at Wrigley Field, their best home start since 1985. Their 13-game home streak, winning streak, is the franchise longest since the 14-game run back in 2008. So this is a historic territory for them. And I think Wrigley Field does matter for them if they're going to be think about when they won the World Series in 2016, how good they were, how dangerous they were at Wrigley Field. They have to make that a real big advantage, and they're doing that this year. And I guess really to my question that I posed, are they special? I guess similar to what we are, and we hate the word early, but it is still early. But this stretch that they've been on is a special foundation they're building. There's no doubt about it. And the best teams kind of revealed themselves not only through just their stars playing well, but being able to like do this with repeatable traits. And like these guys have kind of built up this DNA of wanting to win games. They have depth, they have resilience, and you can kind of see the heroes being made on any given night. They have late game execution. They are clearly not a finished product. And we're going to talk about teams that are going to be challenging the defending champions. But winning 7 straight in May doesn't guarantee anything in October, of course, but you're looking for signs for a team that has a heartbeat, and the Cubs certainly have that right now.
Yeah, you got to remember last year, I think we felt the same way about the Cubs around this time of the year, maybe a little later even. And then obviously the Brewers just kept on coming closer and closer and closer and eventually passed them. That division, like we said, is wild right now. But I mean, when you have the longest home winning streak since 2008 for your squad, like it is certainly very notable. You made a lot of good points, just like the feel, like all the different guys doing it. That it just makes the people in that clubhouse believe, and you never feel like you're completely out of a game. It's fun to come to the ballpark day in, day out. The fans are always going to be into it when you've had so many of those types of wins. Reminds me of what Cody Rhodes has been saying in a few promos lately. He's been using the phrase "easy to find, hard to beat." That's how the Cubs feel right now. Like it does feel hard to finish them when you have a run or two up on them late in the game. And like you said, the fact that the players are not blowing this off, like they're embracing this. They do seem to believe like they, along with the fans, have turned it into an advantage. You mentioned Jameson Taillon. He had a good quote after the game last night. He said, "We've kind of picked up where we left off this year. It just seems like we've really found a way to make this an advantage. And obviously fans coming alive in big situations. Some of these teams aren't completely used to that, which we are. We're spoiled. We get to play with it every night. It's a real advantage." And what he's referring to at the beginning of that, where he said we've picked up where we left off, last year they were really good at home too, 50-31. So I do not think this is a fluke that they play really well at home. And some of the numbers are eye-opening when you compare home and away, especially on one side of it. So I'll read the offensive ones first. Their team OPS at home is 790, which is the 5th best in the major leagues as far as OPS at home. The Yankees are the very best, 873 OPS at home, which is ridiculous. Now, the Cubs have a 767 OPS on the road, which is, only about, less than 30 points less than at home. So it's not that significant when you look at team OPS. 126 team WRC plus at home, that's 3rd best. 117 WRC plus on the road. Okay, still pretty good on the road. This is where it sticks out to me, these next two numbers. On the pitching side, even though we're talking about like the walk-offs and then the offense, 2.97 team ERA at home. It's really good. 4th best in the majors, ERA at home. 5.13 on the road. Now, I don't know if that's something to be excited about or something to be concerned about. Right. But that's, you could debate that as well. 80% left on base percentage at home. So stranding runners, like crowd getting into it, getting behind their pitcher, and they, wiggle their way out of things. That's the 3rd best in the bigs. 64% left on base percentage on the road, which is absolute worst in Major League Baseball. So you're wondering which one of those is more true than the other, and is the truth somewhere in the middle? But the fact that they're going on this run when they've had some adversity, well, you think of Cade Horton going out for the year, right? They've had some adversity and they've been able to overcome it. There is news that Matthew Boyd got hurt playing with his kids over the weekend or something like that, torn meniscus. He'll be out for a bit. That's not great news because you've already kind of suffered in the rotation a little bit. It's Justin Steele, his progress, his comeback stalled. Setback, not what you want to hear when you've already lost your current ace. So they have some things to overcome. But if you're a Cub fan, you have to absolutely love what you see, just of like the attitude of this team, the grittiness of this team. You have to love that and embrace it.
Oh, for sure. And they're a team to watch for sure in a very exciting division, the NL Central. And we'll keep you guys updated tonight. As I said, Pete Crow Armstrong did tie the game in the 9th. They were down 6-4 to kind of contribute to the DNA of this team that never gives up. But let's head into our next segment here, of course. And we're going to be talking a little bit about What's the Word? One of our favorite segments, of course. We love What's the Word, and we're going to need a drop soon from Matt. That's our weekly call out to Matt.
No pressure, Matt.
We need the What's the Word. Let's get into it. All right, so here, what's the word? And we're going to start here with some history stuff that you don't want to be on it, depending on what side you are. The Pirates walked 7 straight times on 5-2 against the Red. It was the first time in 43 years. So you almost never see this in Major League history where you see pitchers just completely lose the strike zone. So laying it out there, Rhett Lauder, Connor Phillips, they did this on Saturday night, 7 straight walks. Sounds more like a little league game than a professional baseball game. And PNC Park was the site of this. The Pirates already had hung 5 runs on Lauder in the first inning. Cincinnati still had a chance to kind of get things right in the second. Said the inning completely unraveled. O'Neal Cruz struck out looking to begin the frame. Then Pittsburgh's lineup completely stopped swinging. So Lauder issued the first 3 free passes before Terry Francona turned to Phillips, who somehow made the situation worse, walking in 4 straight runs himself. So the Pirates broadcasts it was kind of funny watching the highlight of them. They were like confused by it. And then there's outright disbelief. Ball after ball was missing wildly off the plate. And if you guys have ever listened to Pittsburgh's broadcast, they're very much into the home team. They want the Buccos to win. They were just beside themselves watching this happening. The Pirates hitters barely needing to do anything besides stand there and take first base. Somehow the Pirates scored 5 runs in the inning without recording a single hit. So the inning finally ended. Henry Davis grounded to a fielder's choice, and Cruz grounded out immediately, meaning Cruz was responsible for 2 of the 3 outs, despite the Pirates battering around entirely on walks. So a lot of fun stuff here. Baseball never gives a disappointment here. The Pirates tied a record by drawing 7 straight walks, something that hadn't happened twice before in baseball history. Ironically, the last team to ever allow 7 consecutive walks was the Pirates themselves back in 1983. So my word for this, Devin, is disbelief. Because it's just that you feel like it never can happen. Eventually, guys have to find the strike zone and make somebody swing.
Yeah, that's a good one. My word here is red flag, or maybe it should be Reds flag. I'm going to go more towards the red side of things than I am the Pirates. I think this tells you more about them than it does Pittsburgh. The Reds have to be scaring their fans a little bit right now. So the last time we talked about the Reds, we talked about how they were leading the division, right? But like, I don't know, like some of the underlying numbers don't really back that up. Maybe there's some luck here. Well, listen, they have a minus 24 run differential coming into tonight. They've lost 5 straight. They just blew the lead, as you said, in the 9th with the PCA home run to tie it. The Cubs are now going the bottom of the 10th, still tied with a very good chance to go win it and send the Reds to their 6th straight defeat. This is getting scary for the Reds, who were looking exciting for a little while. Before tonight, they've lost 3 straight 1-run games, and that was after the 17-7 loss to Pittsburgh. And if they lose tonight, it very well could be 4 straight 1-run losses. It feels like the luck is starting to wear off a little bit here. Another thing we said about them last time we talked about them was that they had the best bullpen ERA in the league. That has changed incredibly quickly. I looked it up before we came on here. They're now at 4.21 bullpen ERA, which is 18th in the bigs. To go from 1st to 18th in, like, I don't know if that was last week we talked about them. At the very most, it was 2 weeks we talked about them. That's not what you want to see. Their closer, Emilio Pagan, was carted off last night after seemingly pulling his hamstring, maybe tearing. I haven't seen updates yet on the first pitch that he threw. So not good for the Reds. I think we've seen some red flags. That's the word here.
For sure. So Brandon Lau, Brian Reynolds, Ryan O'Hearn, Nick Gonzalez, Marcelo Ozuna, Spencer Horowitz, Connor Griffin, Henry Davis finally grounds out, then O'Neal Cruz grounded. It's just an unbelievable run that goes straight through. I don't think we're going to see it happen again this year. I put some money on that for sure. But let's go to the next one here.
Hold on. Can I jump in here? I can't let this go. I'm watching the Met game since the Knicks won. Shout out to them. I flipped the Mets game on here, and they're off to a good start. But so Steve Gelbs, who is the Mets kind of around the field reporter, doing little pop-in segments here and there. He's been doing this thing this year, which has been pretty fun, where each road ballpark they go to, he's been rating their hot dogs, basically. It's pretty fun, entertaining, good addition for some personality in the broadcast for the Mets. But they're in Colorado. I guess they sell the really long hot dogs. Gelbs went to the booth, and he and Keith Hernandez both took a bite from opposite ends. And Gary Cohen looked on in disbelief. We're gonna have to I'll have to put the picture up sometime on Twitter or Instagram.
I must have missed it.
Oh my God.
That just
I don't know what the word for that is. Unfortunately, I don't have the volume on, so I don't know. But Gary Cohen's look itself was just a look of complete disgust, which is fantastic. We're going to have to put that out there.
Unbelievable. Well, let's move to our next section for what's the word. And the Yankees right now are dead last in batting average from leadoff, despite having the best record in the American League. And again, you look at them, and the Yankees are basically operating with the dead spot at the top of the lineup, still bludgeoning teams offensively. You mentioned some of the stats are leading baseball in. Leadoff hitters right now are batting 160 collectively, worst in Major League Baseball. Trent Grisham, who has led off 25 of 36 games for them, is hitting just 148. In that role, normally that kind of profile crushes the flow of the offense, but they seem to overcome that. Instead, the Yankees are averaging 5.53 runs per game, second in baseball, only behind the aforementioned Atlanta. So interesting enough, I mean, if you look at some of this, my word for this is incomplete, only because this is clearly going to be figured out eventually. And none of that has mattered with Trent Grisham not getting on base or anyone that's batting leadoff. Ben Rice, to me, is the obvious choice to put there. And maybe that is a terrifying thing for a lot of people out there and figuring out who is the stereotypical leadoff hitter. And I know baseball doesn't look at leadoff hitters as the same type of guy as always, but they're essentially winning despite a huge major flaw. And I think that could be scary. But my word right now is incomplete because this Yankees offense could be even better, which is insane.
Yeah, I'll be quick on this one. My word is footnote, as in just a footnote. With how well they're playing all around, I just don't think this matters right now. And I think if I were a Yankee fan, I'd probably feel differently because when you're a baseball fan, even when things are going extremely well, you're going to find the one thing that's not and be like, oh, man, this is a problem. And who knows, maybe it turns into a problem. You don't want your, Grisham hitting 170 there. But yeah, as of now, with just how swimmingly so many other things are going for them, I just think this is just a footnote.
The other thing, too, Trent Grisham, while he's in there, I keep seeing people sharing the news that Aaron Judge changed his walk-up song to Choose in Texas by Ella Langley. But it's Trent Grisham coming up. I don't understand why people keep sharing that Aaron Judge changed his walk-up song. It's still Pop Smoke. I don't like it. It just crazy. Like it just shows people don't watch the games. You know what I'm saying?
Right. They get their news from Twitter, I guess. I don't know. To kind of sort of watch it.
Like clearly, if you watch the game, it's like when I saw the thing, I was like, oh, that's strange that Judge changed his song. Watch the game, and Trent Grisham comes up to the song. So I'm like, and people keep sharing it today. Like, why would Judge change his song? That seems crazy.
Maybe it's not. AI.
Yeah, I guess so. Let's move here with the benches clearing with the Tigers and the Red Sox after Framber hits Trevor Story. My word for this is combustible because this wasn't just a random hit by pitch situation. It seems like everything about that moment felt like a little bit of a boiling over point for the Tigers. They feel stretched thin. They enter the game desperately needing stability from Framber after losing Tarik Skubal to elbow surgery, dealing with injuries. We mentioned Casey Mize, Justin Verlander. Valdez got shelled himself. The Red Sox started celebrating. And the sequence sort of matters there if you look at things. And Trevor Story immediately started yelling at the mound. Red Sox bench empty before home plate umpire Adam Beck got in there to get between them. This is combustible, and the Tigers are frustrated. But this is baseball. I mean, we see it all across the place. You just clearly there's intent on Framber, and we talk about the character concerns that played a part in Houston when he kind of had a little bit of eyebrows being raised about kind of going after his catcher, but this happens in baseball, and it certainly was something that could be a rallying cry for the Tigers or also for the Red Sox, because this is certainly something that it could be combustible in a big way, in a lot of ways, between these two teams and also for the Tigers themselves.
Yeah, that's a good one, and I think that's accurate. My word here is weak. I just felt like Framber, two different things here. Like clearly, like you said, he's doing this out of anger, and it's purposeful. But also, like, I almost felt like he was doing it as a way to get himself out of the game. Like he was getting absolutely destroyed, and I felt like AJ Hinch was leaving him in there to kind of take the bullets here and give us some length. Like, we're losing these guys left and right. We need you to go out there and bite the bullet and just hang in there as long as you can. And so yeah, there was like a small part of me that actually felt like he did it to try to get ejected and be like, get me out of this game. And if you notice, when he was ejected, he didn't argue at all. And that's pretty shocking. If you feel like you're being victimized there and there was no warnings given beforehand, like no arguing, did he actually get the results he wanted? It felt like maybe he did. So I felt like it was pretty weak. I saw a good tweet. Cespedes' family barbecue on Twitter tweeted out, the pitch Framber hit Story with was classified as a four-seam fastball. The first four-seamer Framber has thrown all season. So that feels like more than a coincidence to me. So certainly like pretty obvious here that that's not one that slipped. But yeah, I thought it was pretty weak. And just a side note here, Cubs win again. Bottom of the 10th, bases loaded, 2 outs. Michael Busch walked the winning run in So more bad vibes for the Cincinnati Reds here, who lose their 6th straight game overall and their 4th straight one-run loss, and just walk-off after walk-off here at Wrigley on a walk-off walk for, I mean, the Reds are, that feels like a sinking ship right now, because it's not just about losing, it's about the way you lose. That can really demoralize a team really quickly.
Yeah, I think watching what the Reds are doing, and I'm the proud owner of Sal Stewart in fantasy, and he's been struggling as of late. And it seems like the whole team is struggling, and it's the way you're losing, like you said so perfectly. Just to wrap up, Fromber, he has a 5-game suspension, and now it kind of leaves Detroit further in a spot to scramble for innings, and they can at least afford this. And now they're in a situation to figure it out with a lack of depth. And Chad Tracy agreed with you too. His word for this was weak. Trevor Story said we all know what's what. So like they clearly everyone's out there, but Chad Tracy wasn't a fan. If you watch AJ Hinch's reaction to this, he never strongly defended it publicly. So like he knew what the deal was as well. So there's some bad vibes there with Framber, but we'll talk a little bit more of that as we go further. But our last what's the word here is the National League East. And is it over? And we talked about Atlanta, so we're not going to get too far into it, but over the first 5 weeks of the season, the Braves have created some real distance in a division that was supposed to be a 3-team war. And look at the Mets and the Phillies. We've done enough talking about them. The Mets are up 4-0 in Colorado right now, but they've spent the first month looking inconsistent, injured, and also to add the Phillies in that, just flat out disappointing, even though the Phillies have been playing better ball since firing Rob Thompson. So looking at the lead right now for the Atlanta Braves, is it impossible to erase? No. Baseball seasons are too long for anyone to seriously really say that with a straight face. But sitting at this point, as we sit 8.5 games up with the second place Phillies, I think it's not impossible to raise this. What makes this feels different, as kind of what we talked about with Atlanta, about how they're doing this. It's not built on smoke and mirrors. The projections, the zips, if you kind of buy into what they're doing there, they project the Braves for 93 wins, gives them nearly a 70% chance to win the division. The Phillies playoff odds and offensive projections have slipped. The Mets have fallen harder. If you kind of look at the real-time thing, my word for this is separation. It's not fluky. It's not over, but there is separation to at least have the conversation, which is kind of sad in the first week of May.
Yeah, and I think that word might be better than the one I have. I guess I took it a little differently. My word is foolish, as in if we were to say that it's over, it'd be foolish. Okay, and that's just because it was just last year when the Guardians stormed back very unexpectedly to take the AL Central. The Tigers blew a 10-game lead in less than a month's time. And I'm not saying that's going to happen here or that's going to happen every single year somewhere, but the fact that we just saw it a year ago, we know it can happen in baseball. Crazier things have happened. The Braves coming into the day were 9.5 up. So we saw a 10-game lead blown in a month. A 9.5-game lead can certainly be blown in several months. And I get it. The other teams haven't looked like they're up to doing something like that, but you just never know what's going to happen. You also don't know what's going to happen on the Braves side as far as health. We've seen health really affect their success in years past, and so far they've been better in that department this year, but you never know when the wheels might fall off in baseball. Things like that happen, and it's very, very early still, even though we've gotten a significant amount of games under our belt. But yeah, I'll go with foolish if we're thinking it's absolutely over.
And there is pressure building in the calendar. There's no doubt about that. And I think what it does for the Braves, it doesn't put the nail in the coffin of the other teams. It does give you a cushion to not have to play 700 baseball throughout the summer. They could have a little bit of a swoon if they needed to. If you have an 8.5 game lead in June and July, I think that kind of can turn into 12, 13 pretty quickly before anyone realizes it. And then we can have the conversation if it's over. But you can never say never in baseball, especially the first week of May. The division is not over, and we'll see if any of these teams can climb out. And I know there's bad vibes for the Phils and also for the Mets. The Phils are playing better baseball, as I mentioned, since firing Rob Thompson. Do you buy into that? Is that just a little bit of a bump you get after firing a guy? They've won 4 straight, winners of their 8 of their last 10. Is there something there with Don Mattingly and the boys over there?
Sure. I mean, why not? Like it happens right after. We've seen this happen before. Like it's not, we've seen it happen with this franchise before relatively recently. So I don't know for sure, but I wouldn't completely write it off as like, no, it's definitely not the manager change. I mean, it happened pretty much when the manager was changed. So it certainly possibly could be, it could potentially be correlated. Let's just say that.
Don Mattingly looks so bizarre in the the uniform. I know you guys can't see it on here. He just looks so bizarre in a Phillies uniform.
Yeah,
I
I
just
agree. It
can't.
doesn't fit him. We've seen him in what? We've seen him now in the Dodgers uniform in like a coaching way.
Jays,
What
yeah.
Marlins, Jays. Yeah, none of those looked crazy on him, but the Phillies for some reason, I guess it's the red. We're not used to him in the red.
It's the bright.
The,
It's the bright
yeah.
red. All right, well, let's move into our polls here. You posted a poll only a few hours ago at this point on our Twitter
Yeah.
at Tablesetters Pod. Speak to the poll about the biggest threat to the Los Angeles Dodgers.
Yeah, so this one still has, let's see, about 19 hours left to go. So these results likely will change. If you're listening right now on Thursday and you haven't seen the poll, head to our Twitter, go give us your thoughts, vote and give us a comment if you want to expand on your thoughts. But I just am interested in what you and I think here. Which team is the biggest threat to the Dodgers World Series title defense as of now? And your choices are the Yankees, obviously have looked like one of the best teams in baseball so far. Braves, who we've talked a lot about tonight. The Chicago Cubs, who we've also talked a lot about tonight. And the San Diego Padres, I had to put in there because, like we said earlier, like they're right on the Dodgers' tail in that division. So how could you not include them here? So far, the Braves leading the way with 56%, and no one else has more than 19%. So it's a runaway so far for the Braves. People are buying what they are seeing with that Atlanta club. Surprised by that, or would you have a different answer right now?
No, I would say the Braves as well. I don't want to sit here and say that an American League team is going to be the biggest threat to a Dodgers three-peat, because I don't want to live in that world, Devin. I don't want to sit here and guarantee that the biggest roadblock is not even in their league. I would hope that there is a bigger roadblock. I really buy what the Padres are doing. They are certainly a Joker to the Batman, or Batman to the Joker situation for the Dodgers. They get under their skin. If they play in a playoff series, I would love to see the matchup. There's something about those teams playing where I think the Padres can find a way to grind it out. But my answer would be the Atlanta Braves. And for all the reasons we discussed before of how good they are, if we had them in a 7-game series with all the things being played out, and I know playoff games are not played in May, but if you put the two teams next to each other in a 7-game set right now, I'm not certain we would sit here and say we're confidently picking the Dodgers. And I'm sure a lot of people out here, with the way that the Braves have been playing, would pick the Bravos to win that series. And that says a lot to how well they've been playing.
Yeah, I think the Braves as currently constructed and the Yankees as currently constructed are legitimate, like very, very legitimate threats if they were to match up with the Dodgers in a playoff series. I just love what both of those teams are doing. Neither team is one that I root for, but watching them, I'm like, damn, these guys are good. And the Braves are very interesting because I think pitching wise, to beat the Dodgers in a playoff series, they probably are going to need a little bit more, but they have some pretty talented pieces in the minors that if they're willing to deal and go for it, they might be able to put a pretty good package together to get one of those guys, maybe that you mentioned earlier when we talked about Skubal and could the Tigers trade for someone who's available that could fit into the top or middle of the rotation there to help out Chris Sale and the like. And there's also, if they maybe just want to use those guys themselves, we've already seen J.R. Ritchie here, show himself, have a kind of up and down. Didier Fuentes mainly in the bullpen, but I find them very intriguing as far as what they're going to do. And you just think about it, like they've done this without that many contributions from Ronald Acuna Jr. so far, like on the IL right now, but even before that, like wasn't exactly looking like himself. Right. So just imagine he gets back and starts to be the guy we know he can be, on top of what Matt Olson's doing, on top of what Drake Baldwin's doing. Can Austin Riley ever look like the same guy he used to be? Or has that kind of boat sailed away? But I find the Braves very intriguing, and I very much buy into the New York Yankees, especially with knowing that they still have more guys coming back, man. I think it's incredible what they're doing right now.
Yeah, for the Yanks to speak on them, I know we didn't speak a lot about them tonight, but there was a conversation after they beat the Texas Rangers last night. And Joe Girardi, obviously former manager of the Yankees, winning the World Series in 2009, is in the booth for the Yes Network now, and he's sitting with Michael Kay, and they're talking as they're doing the post-game handshakes, and they're talking about wrapping up the game. Girardi said it's starting to feel like 1998, which is something they don't say. And to hear Girardi say that, it was kind of telling. We're like, ooh, there's a vibe going on where, we play today, we win today type of vibe that a lot of these Yankee teams, and there's been a conversation in the past, and Aaron Judge made it a point during the offseason to discuss really eulogizing what was the years past and letting teams off the hook where they have a sweep ready to be there and they kind of just coast to the last game. They're confident just winning 2 out of 3 and moving on. They're putting their foot on team's throat. I know they lost to Texas tonight, but that 4-game sweep against Baltimore and what they've done to Boston, I know they were swept in Tampa, and I'm interested to see how they match up at home this coming weekend. This team is taking no prisoners, and they're coming back in games. They're getting pitching from all different corners. We have Rodon coming back. Obviously, Garrett Cole, who's beaning minor league hitters, by the way, out there. That he's pissed off and overweight and getting upset that
overweight.
Which is, it's just crazy to see like the reinforcement there. And again, you don't want to sit here and just like they're going to win every single day. And I watched 1998 as a kid. It was a foundational year in my baseball memory. I'm not sure if I'm there yet, but you hear Girardi, who's watched a lot of baseball. He's played baseball. He's been in the trenches to say that this team is reminiscent of 1990. Even him saying that, it got me excited as a Yankee fan.
Oh, how could it not? I mean, you're either gonna be excited about it or you're gonna be like, dude, don't say, like, don't put that on us. But they just have to stay out of the way of Nathan Eovaldi. My guy Eovaldi, man, he likes pitching against the Yankees. Like historically pretty good, but this year I think 2 times recently has dominated them. Where honestly before that he was looking like he's like taking a step backward this year. And strangely enough, it took facing like the best offensive team in baseball to get him right. Another 8 innings out there tonight. He looked great. But other than that, the Yankees have looked like world beaters. Are you, at the risk of getting into another conversation, I know we're kind of heading towards wrapping the episode up, but the Anthony Volpe stuff I find very interesting. Are you happy with the way they've handled those things with keeping him down?
Yeah, you got to be, just the way Caballero has played. It seems like the pressure on both sides of the fence, of whether you're Team Volpe, which seems like the front office was unapologetically Team Volpe for the longest time without the meritocracy that should exist in a front office of earning playing time. Jose Caballero has earned his spot on this team. And that's not to say Volpe and Caballero can't coexist in some way on this team together as time goes on. I think long-term answer for the New York Yankees is Anthony Volpe as your everyday shortstop if they have their way. But as I mentioned before, the mindset of wanting to win every single day and putting the best team on the field, there's a shift in a mindset we've seen from Brian Cashman, from Aaron Boone, from a lot of these guys out there, where Caballero gives them the best chance to win right now. Defensively, offensively, he's a dynamic player. He's stealing bases. And Anthony Volpe doesn't seem like he's right yet. He certainly hasn't played awful in the rehab stint, but he hasn't wowed everybody to earn the spot of being like, we have to put him in the lineup. And as soon as Volpe got healthy enough, that's when Caballero started launching some balls and he's playing a little bit more inspired baseball. But that's a good thing. For Volpe to have to earn his way back on this team and not just have the spot waiting for him, that's a good thing, and it shows the signs of a winning culture that the Yankees, I know they won a lot of games in the past, but that was missing. Like, it felt like Volpe was a given going forward. Last year, if this was the Yanks last year, it'd been like, it's Volpe. I don't care how bad he plays defensively. I don't care if his shoulders bump. He's going to be the shortstop. They were listening a little bit of like, Caballero's the guy right now, and there's a vibe that you don't want to dismiss, and Volpe's got to earn his way back on it. And I do think he will find his way back in the Bronx this year.
Yeah, it's got to be refreshing for Yankee fans, like, to just base it on how people are playing. And why would you want to mess with a good thing right now? I think that might be what they're thinking. Like, what if we bring him back, let him start, and it just doesn't go well? And you don't want that for him either, because he's going to get booed out of the building if he feels like something that is kind of. Who's that?
Spencer Jones hit a ball that we thought was gone. It was a double. Yeah, in AAA. So he hit a ball that looked like it was gone. Volpe was on first. Looked like it was gone. So he kind of coast past second and did like a home run trap. And it was a double, and he had to stop at third. And the announcers, to their credit, was like, they were ripping on Volpe and being like, you have to be running out of the gate when that ball's hitting there, and make sure you're watching it. But
I found it interesting too that Judge openly said to the media that they asked him about Volpe, and he said, yeah, I talked to him for like 40 minutes on the phone last night, just going through stuff. I thought that was, Judge doesn't give the media much to just straight up tell them that, yeah, he had this phone call with Volpe and sounded like kind of like trying to reassure him and things like that. That was interesting. But we're going to go to the sub-2 ERA crew here, and then we'll come around third to get everybody out of here. We've talked a lot about a lot of different things tonight. But we'll go to something lighter here. The sub-2 ERA crew, one of my favorites. We still have, let's see, 6 guys that are hanging in here, and it's changed a pretty good amount from last week. The entire season, Jose Soriano was leading the pack right? At one point, 0.2 something he was out there. He's finally given up some runs. He's still in the mix, but he is not at the top. My guy, Shohei Ohtani, on the mound, 0.97 ERA, the only guy under 1, looking for that Cy Young for his trophy case. Cam Schlittler, speaking of the Yankees and studs, 1.52. He's next. Davis Martin, who you talked about last week's episode, I tweeted about. So Mason Miller's slider easily has the biggest whiff percentage of any individual pitch, 72% or something like that. Ridiculous. The next highest whiff percentage on an individual pitch is Davis Martin's slider at about 59%. Pretty incredible what he has become so far this year. He's at a 1.64. Clay Holmes, who you mentioned in passing tonight, has been absolutely phenomenal, super underrated, probably because the Mets have mostly been a disaster this year, but 1.69, certainly not Clay Holmes' fault. Nick Martinez, I know people streaming him left and right in fantasy baseball. Maybe someone has finally held on to him in your league. In ours, I do not think anyone has. He was streamed again, but I'm pretty sure I saw him let go. 1.71 ERA for the Rays. And then Jose Soriano, instead of being at the top of the sub-2 ERA crew, he's at the bottom. Still a good place to be. Very private club here. Not easy to get into. He's at 1.74. So as I ask you every single week, out of those 6 dudes, which is, a pretty good list at this point, who has the best chance of sticking around for the longest time, and who do you think is just visiting?
I like Killer Cam. I think what we've seen from him, I don't think we've seen the ceiling of what he is as a pitcher. And I know that might sound like a Yankee bias, Yankee boy over here, but Cam Schlittler looks like the real deal. And he's going to make the case for being the ace of the staff. I think he's not going to let go of that title lightly, even with Cole coming back and Rodon. He wants to be the ace of this staff, and there's a competitive nature to this kid. I think he's going to continue to compete at a high level. He looks different, built different. As far as the other guys go, Jose Soriano seems like the writing's on the wall that the league has caught up to him a little bit. Seeing some of the stuff we've seen from him over the last 7 days, I have some of the stats in front of me. It hasn't been pretty. 11.25 ERA, 8 hits allowed, 5 walks in just 4 innings, constant traffic on the bases, only 3 strikeouts. I think the whip tells the story a little bit, which means everybody is kind of finding their way on board, which, that's impossible to survive as a starting pitcher, especially when the command starts disappearing. So I think the frustrating part for the Angel fans and also for fantasy owners is like the raw stuff is still flashing. You see the velocity, you see the movement, and I think it's a little bit confusing, but ebbs and flows. I think how he responds to this stretch is going to kind of ultimately determine how this campaign goes. As you said, the ERA is still there. He pitched so well in the beginning of the year that even though this 7-day stretch, he has an ERA above 11, he still has the chance to really right the ship and be the ace the Angels need. They need him to stabilize the rotation. The Angels need him badly there. So he needs to be out there and fix the command. That's the biggest thing I pulled from him. And I think he's going to fall out, but if they have him living in somewhere like 3.5, almost 4 ERA, like I think you can live with that, especially with the raw stuff and any given night giving length. I think the Angel fans would be okay with that.
Yeah, and from what we heard, when you start to struggle as an Angel, all you got to do, according to Mike Trout and Zach Neto, is open some Pokemon cards. Apparently that is what Zach Neto did with Mike Trout, and they opened some cards, and it relaxed Neto, and he looks a little better at the plate now. So maybe if Soriano has another bad start or two, maybe they pull him in there and open a new pack.
And before we move on to coming around third, I'd just be remiss if I did not mention Ted Turner passing away. So I know longtime Atlanta Brave owner, the guy that kind of put the Braves on national TV. Wrestling fans, of course, know him for his contributions to WCW and going head to head with Vince McMahon during the Monday Night Wars. I know a lot of people have been sharing the End of the World video that he recorded. If you guys are familiar with that, on CNN, where they recorded this video that if the end of the world happened, CNN would play this video of Ted Turner talking about the end of the world. Go out and find it. It's like ridiculous dystopian type of stuff. But yeah, Ted Turner, trailblazer in the way that he kind of conceptualized sports and entertainment media out there. And, he's a guy who did a lot, and his impact's being felt as far as making the Braves at one point, maybe America's team, quote unquote, as far as baseball goes. There was a national capacity of we didn't have the baseball package where a lot of people had the ability to watch the Braves on a daily basis, no matter what market you were in.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. And obviously Steve and I are wrestling fans too. So We grew up on the WWF, WCW, Monday Night Wars. Ted Turner was a big reason and part of that. I remember all the terrible, terrible billionaire Ted skits when some of the WWE guys started going to WCW and they started trying to make fun of them, say they had all the old guys, the Nacho Man, right? The Huckster. Oh, those skits were really, really bad. And then the Vince McMahon tried to have a different person play Razor Ramon and Diesel since they left. And a little trivia for any only kind of sort of casual wrestling fan out there: the guy who played the fake Diesel was Glenn Jacobs, who then went on to become Kane, way more successful as that character.
And now he's a mayor, right? Now he's
mayor of Knoxville, Tennessee. Yep.
Full circle. Well, pro wrestling and politics go hand in hand, I guess, because I do love the photo. Politics aside, I do love the photo where it's Triple H, Linda, Vince, I think Stephanie, Donald Trump. They're all in the White House, and I think it says like Stone Cold has stunned 93% of people in this photo.
It's true. It's true.
It is true.
A weird world we live in.
He did, yeah, for sure. But let's come around third here and talk about what we're looking forward to coming up this week. All right, coming around third here, and we probably both have a similar answer. We talked a lot about the Braves tonight. They have a real big test coming up this weekend against the Los Angeles Dodgers. That's going to be must-see TV happening this weekend. Outside of just watching some fantasy matchups and some of these teams trying to get right and individual stats, as far as a national interest, I think there should be a lot of baseball eyes on the Braves and the Dodgers to see really if the Braves can be that threat that everybody thinks they can be to the Dodgers run through what eventually we believe will be another great postseason for them.
Yeah, that's prime time stuff right there. I have a couple others that stand out as well. We talked a lot about the Reds tonight with some heartbreaking losses, losing streak. Man, if they're going to keep their fans believing here, they face the Astros in Houston. Oh, no, sorry, in Cincinnati. So at home, they're still 3 games above 500. The Astros, as we know, very good offense, very poor pitching. The Reds need to go win that series to make things feel a little more right and get back on the right side of things. Because you got to start to worry if you're a Reds fan of what you've seen lately. And then the other one, Yankees and Brewers, I think is a super fun series. Yeah, the Brewers have not exactly played up to their potential. And when you look at the record, 19-16, we feel like they're probably a better team than that. But with that being said, some of the pitching matchups you get in that series are really fun. I believe you have Jacob Mizorowski against Max Fried on Friday. I think you have Cam Schlittler against Kyle Harrison, who's looked fantastic. I'm not sure what the Sunday matchup is. I think the Brewers are going to throw Logan Henderson out there, who also, just recently came up for them, but looks like another stud. And we'll see who the Yankees throw out on the mound on Sunday.
Carlos
but I think that's
a
fun one.
Oh,
that's why it's empty when I looked at the matchup, because he's not up on the roster yet. That's a fun series then of pitching matchups for sure.
For sure. Carlos Rodon looking to kind of right the ship, and there's a lot of young talent with the Brewers. And like you said before, they've kind of hit into some bad luck. 19-16 on the year. Their expected win total, if you believe in that stuff, they have a run differential plus 46, and they're expected to be 22-13. So that's 3 less wins than you were supposed to have. So we expect that to even out at some point in a really tough NL Central. They sit 5 games back of the Red Hot Cubs, who are 25-12, winners of 8 straight. And don't forget about those Cardinals, man. Jordan Walker becoming the face of the franchise. Best fans in baseball recipient of a really good hot streak for Jordan Walker.
Yeah, they just needed to let the kids play. And hopefully those Cardinal fans are coming back to the ballpark now that they have it looks like they have something to watch.
Yeah, but I don't think they've been back in the ballpark. I'm curious where they rank in attendance, but I see a lot of empty red seats out there in St. Louis.
Check those attendance numbers. Get back to you.
Yeah, well, it looks like we're watching the game right now. Mets in Colorado, as you mentioned before. A lot of empty seats in Colorado. I know you mentioned the snow, and shout out to the grounds crew out in Colorado removing that snow. They've been sharing a lot of videos of being able to make that field look pristine. I've been out to Coors Field, one of the better fields in baseball. It's kind of a unique experience to be out in Denver watching a baseball game. Cool culture as far as like a sporting town. It feels like it's more of a college football type of vibe. They do love their Broncos, of course, and they do love their Avs, but it seems like there's more of a University of Colorado vibe. But they do have this affinity for their Rockies when they're playing well, but they haven't showed up quite yet. And maybe it's, the Mets right now beating them down 5-0 with the bases loaded in the top of the 6th. So we'll see if they'll show up. And I think that is a big conversation around baseball with the attendance numbers. It's been cold a lot of places, and New York certainly hasn't
Dude,
warmed up
so cold.
consistently. And some of these spots that are cold generally, they're not warming up. So unless you're on the West Coast, some of these numbers are being hit with a little bit of the reduction of people showing up because it's just not summer weather yet. We're sitting here 3 weeks away from Memorial Day, and we still got to wear jackets.
Yeah, it's annoying. If the Mets keep on hitting like this, I may just never want them to leave Colorado, 30 degrees or not. Like we haven't seen a lot of this year, and they're starting to swing the bats a little bit. Nice to see.
Yeah, just like the conversation about the hot dogs eating on both ends. Maybe that will bring the Mets together.
Dude, we got to get that picture up somewhere. Oh,
That's
unbelievable. I can't believe they did.
That's an unbelievable vibe. What, like, I don't understand why you'd go that route. Seems
If they
ridiculous.
start a winning streak, we may see posters of that around City Fields for months to come if they go on like a 10-game winning streak after that incident.
Well, I mean, we'll see. I mean, the thing is, it feels like they're playing for Mendoza's job because, like, we've passed that stretch where those managers, Correa obviously got fired, and I saw some conversation, and the sports radio networks are always like going out there making conversation, but some people were talking about Alex Cora potentially taking the Mets job sometime at the end of next year. I know he was offered the Phillies job, wants to spend time with his family. How would you feel about Cora being the guy? And maybe Beltran kind of gets brought in as well as some sort of consigliere to him as well with his influence on the franchise. Would you want a full reset of the roles with Cora being in charge if Mendoza's not the guy?
I mean, I'm not against it. I'm not like for it. I'll be honest. Like my biggest concern as a Met fan is the personnel, like on the field, and the guy that's in charge of putting that together. You got to do something to make me believe that you know what you're doing in the front office. That's kind of how I feel, regardless of who's in the clubhouse as manager. Like I'm more worried about personnel at this point.
So again, if you want to support our show, you guys can follow us at Tablesetters Pod on IG and on X. As Devin mentioned, we're above 5K on X, and that's all Devin's doing with his memorable notables. Join the conversation. Let us know what you think of the show. If you're new here, joining us from those posts that Devin was putting out there, putting the hard work in, thank you for joining us, and I hope you're enjoying the show. Let us know what you think about it. Let us know what you'd like us to talk about. If you have a favorite team out there that we didn't touch upon, if you're like, I'm a Toronto Blue Jays fan, you didn't mention shit about my team. Okamoto is absolutely tearing the cover off the ball, but you're not talking about it. Why? Let us know. Lay it into us and let us know.
Yeah, but now we did. See, quick Okamoto shout out. Can't complain now. But someone else, I'm sure there's other people out there that we didn't give the love that deserve it.
Yeah, like Devin said. So we'll be talking all things baseball going throughout the season. Devin, any final words before we get out of here for the week?
Let's go Knicks, man. 2-0. Let's finish that off. Maybe next time we're on here, we're talking about the Eastern Conference Finals. That would be nice.
Unbelievable. I'm looking at all the metrics right now, going back to the Eastern Conference Finals, and not to get into a full conversation, Joel Embiid coming in the post game after game one, saying he's going to play dirty and he's going to play even rougher with the Knicks. And then he sits out during the game and whatever. I know that he had the appendectomy thing a while ago, or he was sitting out in the first series with that. And now I think he couldn't walk because of his hip and his knee. And there's been the conversation where talking about fans not buying tickets, Philadelphia fans not selling their tickets to Knicks fans. Yeah. What's your standing on that? Where you have these franchises, because I think Embiid was saying, if you need money, I'll give it to you. And they're trying to restrict Knicks fans from coming out there. My opinion quick on it is like, it's an indictment on the fan base. If you're not showing up to support them, and they haven't, they're even during the Celtics series, there wasn't a buy-in from Philadelphia fan base with them. There was more of a belief in the Flyers and what they were doing. And it felt like there were very reasonable seats available for a game 7 against the Boston Celtics waiting for them. So like, I don't know. I feel like there is a lot of conversation about the fans of Philadelphia need to step up instead of saying Knicks fans can't buy it. Like, why don't you tell your fan base to come out there and support the team?
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of not selling tickets to the opposing team's fans, but it's a little embarrassing if your star player has to come out and say something like that because they're worried about not being able to sell the tickets to their own fans. But I think it's a little bit of that city and those fans have seen the Joel Embiid-led Sixers for a while now, and I think they've kind of lost belief that they can go further than they have so far. I like Joel Embiid. I think he's a super entertaining dude. I think he can be really funny. But obviously, when you're playing against him, he says some things that make you want to roll your eyes. And hopefully, we don't have to talk about him that long. And get out of there and get it done quick. But I don't know. It might be a little harder than we think right now, up 2-0. I'm not too comfortable yet. Maybe that's just a New York sports fan. I've dealt with a lot of ugly over the years, so I'm not punching that ticket yet.
Yeah, man, it's an interesting thing. I know that when Tibbs got fired and everyone's looking at the Knicks trying to take the next step, and when they were down at some point last year, or I should say early this year after they won the NBA Cup, felt like that was the high for this year. And since then, they played very poor basketball, and everyone's questioning the motive. But it seems like they had this on-off switch that they didn't have in any other year, where they literally have turned it on. I know today was a little bit of a slog through getting through this game, but the final games through Atlanta, and then obviously the first two games, or the first game, I should say, against Philly, having this on switch. I don't think I've seen a Knick team have this on switch of like reserving themselves, because the biggest critique we had about the Tibbs-led teams was how injured they were and how beat up they got up to the Eastern Conference Finals, and Josh Hart was all bandaged up, and Cat was hurt, and Jalen was hurt. Feels like they were well rested and obviously banged up in some way, but they've kind of made it to the dance, and like they've saved their bullets for times like now, and it's almost like they're playing their best ball right now. That's a credit to the coach and his adjustments.
Yeah, you do. I mean, he takes a lot of shit when things are not going well, so you got to give him credit. I do think there was a noticeable difference from when they went down 2-1 to the Hawks, and everyone's up in arms like, oh, we're going to have to fire the coach after 1 year. And they came out different from that point on. You watch them, like, they're turning good defense into easy offense, putting up some crazy point totals, just super aggressive, steal everything. Like, it's fun basketball to watch. And I said to someone, if they can bottle this and keep this going through the rest of the postseason, like, it's going to be really hard for anyone, either conference, to beat them in a 7-game series. But they've got to keep it going, because as Knick fans, we've seen it go the other way as well. Like, what the hell are they doing tonight? Like, they look like a totally different team. So we'll see if they can keep it going.
Yeah, tonight I had a little bit of that feeling where they weren't able to get everything going, but they outlasted the Sixers.
Still pulled it out.
I think the depth on their bench, they're just a better team. Yeah, there's a better team. But we appreciate everybody joining us for the show. Of course, we'll be back next week talking all things baseball. Stay tuned to our Twitter account for all things. We'll eventually hop on here and talking more college baseball. A lot of good updates for happening over there in NCAA, fantasy baseball, of course. But stay tuned to future episodes and all the things we have going on. But until that time, we'll talk to you after a while. And as always, happy baseball. Rest in peace.